Hey guys, how's it going? On work, home from work today, so I figured I'd do a video on a couple of guys were asking, how do you get a parking area using those tiles so perfect? And I do a good job on those. And I figured I'd show, this is not so much the design. Like if you're doing a fantasy course, you don't have to worry about elevations and everything else because you can adjust it to whatever you want, right? Where if you have a lidar course, it's a total different ball game, and with the elevations and everything, and having to smooth it. So it's I figured I'd show people how to do that. Bear with me one sec. Okay, so how do we go from this mess to a good looking area for the clubhouse and parking? Well, if you look at my open street, what I always do, and then what I tell everybody to do, everything is a cart path. All right. So it pulls it in. So even though it's a parking lot and there's attributes that you can say, oh, it's a parking lot. No, you don't want to do that because it's not going to pull it into the golf club with that attribute of parking lot. All right. So whether it's a street out here, all right, which I'm not bringing into the golf club, but you can see territory road. It's not going to pull it in. But anything in the golf course that I feel is relevant. Let's see. Did I make this? I did not. So I should make that a golf cart path. Same with this. And again, I'm not done with this. I just figured I'd show as an example. All right. All these different areas. If somebody has already splined this, which, that's nice, but they always spline it true to life instead of how's it going to import into the golf club properly so we can see these splines. And the answer is it has to be a golf cart path. So anything that we want in there, it's going to be classified as a golf cart path. All right. And as a result of that, like here's a golf cart path. And if we look in the, here it is, right? So this way I know where these parking areas are going to be. There's going to be one here and up here. And then, of course, the buildings are classified. All right. I always just go around and, you know, make an outline, and everything I classify as a building is going to be an office. All right. So you've got that. You've got this other building here, which is what I still can't figure out what this thing is. All right. But it's there. All right. And the other important thing is you need to go around the entire course and flag everything as an office. So every little building that you have out here, whether it's those, um, you know, outhouses, whatever you find out here in the golf course, make sure, like here, here's an outhouse, right? So we've got to put this stuff in there and make sure that that cart path goes around so we know it's there. All right. So with that in mind, let's go back to the golf club. So as we know with lidar can be off. All right. And if you try to do a parking lot here in this general area, and again, it's a parking lot. All right. We're not going to spend hours on this thing. All right. But we need to make sure that we have a parking lot there because it is visible, you know, from this tee box and from this area here, and you're going to see it coming into hole 9 and looking out here. All right, so we have to have stuff there to indicate, oh, there's going to be a bunch of cars there. And there's going to be a lot of cars. Here's the problem. A lot of guys don't use the parking tiles because they can't do it. All right, it looks like crap. So I'm going to show you how I create the perfect parking lot. All right, and it all comes down to the brush that I use. So I'm using a brush I never use for anything else. It's in flatten. Oop, I just blew right by it. This one right here on the last page. All right. And I grabbed that one. Now, this thing is, hey, Maddie, what's up, buddy? So what I'm going to do is make this, and it's a severe brush, and it makes things flat as a pancake. But as a result of that, it's going to, you know, you're going to see in a second here. I do my custom brush and make it all the way out to the extent of this parking area. All right. So approximately there, because I can see that there's some contouring right there. All right. But the splines go down all the way down here, which is not correct. So we know the LiDAR data is off a little bit. So, but again, it's a parking lot. I don't care. All right. So I'm going to get this the approximate size of the parking lot. Oops, I'm not going to raise it. I am going to make this wider. Okay. Because the reason I'm making it wider than those gray areas is because if you go over to Firefox here and you look, you'll see where I have it splined. I have it splined in the middle, right? It's not going around the edge. And I could have done that. And I might actually start doing that to get a better idea. So we know it's wider than those gray areas. All right. And we're going to have that. I don't know. Let's try it right there. So 0 height. And this is a severe brush. So you're going to see in a second what it does. All right. So it has now created a perfect flat area. And I'm going to undo that because I want to show you what happens with the tiles. So if we go in here and add an object, building, miscellaneous, and take a car park, as they put it. All right. Here's the car park. And we spin it around and we want to put it in this area. Well, as you can see, all right, it ain't happening. So what a lot of guys do is they'll like, okay, we'll lay this out and then we'll flatten the surface and try to get it so there's no grass popping up and everything else, right? No, screw that. It's just too much work because if you try to get them lined up, throughout here, and it's not going to happen. So that's why I go in first and use my brush here, all right, and get that lined up as much as possible. I'm going to put that right about there. Okay, so I hit that. Boom. Now I have a perfect surface for my panels. So I can go in here now and place objects and buildings and miscellaneous and car parks, and voila. Okay, they're perfect. They're going to be perfect. So I'm just going to start over here, and I'm going to, I don't know, we can use this as a starting point. And another thing, and we'll remove that tree later, but the other thing I don't do, I don't spin these panels. So once I have an idea of where I'm going to go down here, I stay exactly the same angle all the time and don't touch the panels, because to try to get them lined up, if you spin them around and you have these over here pointing in, it's not going to happen. You can't do it. They never line up. All right. So it looks like crap. All right. So what I do is just go in here and make sure that they're lined up top and bottom, and that there's no gap between the panels. All right. And then I just go in here and line them up. If you screw up and it's too far away, undo it. Okay. So I'm going to use 4 panels. Now, where guys will try, and I'm not even going to do it because then I'll be screwed. All right. Once you touch the panels and spin them anyway, you're done. It's not going to, you're not going to get a clean path. All right. Without a lot of work. Okay. So it's a parking lot, for God's sakes. So I'm not really worrying about parking lots and which way they're shaped and everything else. All my goal is to get this looking good from the golf course and put some cars on it and say, "Oh, there's a parking lot. Yep, there's my goal." All right. So again, I'm just going to line this up to the outside edge there, and we're not worrying about the splines at the moment. All right. I'll show you how I'm going to fix that. Now I got to look in the top right up here to make sure that it's perfectly aligned. Okay. And that there's no gap. And you can see the gap. See right there, there's a gap. That's a fail. So you got to go over until it disappears and carry on. So want to make it the same height and no gap. Okay. And voila. Now we have a parking lot, and it's perfect. Okay. It's flat, it's clean, there's no grass sticking out of it. I'll get rid of that tree. All right. So, like I said, I'm not going to spin these. I don't want to spin them. I've tried to do it in the past. It's a fail. It just, you can't align them perfectly, and that bugs me. So I don't do it. All right. Now, as far as the splines, all right, we have the parking area generally right where we want to have it. The splines are off and they're really worthless at this point. So all I do is delete them. Boom, gone. Okay. Now what I'll do is go back in, because I use those just as markers. Okay. Just to give me an idea of where is parking going to be. So now that I have the parking down in place, I will create surfaces, splines. Okay. And then what I normally do is I will just line this up. It's unimportant right now. Okay. But like half of it in there. Okay. They don't have to be close, although close is sometimes better. When I say close, I don't mean really close, but because I'll show you what I'm going to do. So I just line that blue line right up to the edge of the parking area. And I leave a half a spline out above it. All right. So now what I can do is just go ahead and fill that spline point, the whole path. 9. Okay. Now we have a perfect drivable area. But all right, a car needs to come down there, not a cart. So I tend to make all these areas here wider. So I go in here and edit them, the width, and I'll make those about, I don't know, like 5. All right. That way it gives you ample room to go around the parking area, and it looks good. So the car can come around here, come back down here to park. All right. Now, as you can see, when you use that brush, you end up with some, areas here that shouldn't be there, right? So you have to be careful, and that's what I said about that brush. It's brutal. It will uh, really make these edges, not natural. So you can do one of two things. You can throw a bunch of bushes around there because again, it's a parking lot. We don't care. All right. But what I normally do is this. Now, you would never use this brush anywhere on a golf course. All right. Except for right at a tiny building or something like that. Okay. So what I normally do to fix this, because if you want a perfect parking lot, you need flatness, and that's what we got. So this is looking really good. This, on the other hand, is a fail. So what we need to do, my rule of thumb is, whoops, not that. You don't raise it. All right. If I could hit the proper button. Oh, no wonder I'm on custom. Like, why isn't my... So what I'm doing now is I'm making my blue area really big. All right. And I know that this area is perfectly flat here, right? So what I tend to do is make this huge, this blue area, and then I click and just keep moving out slowly. And what that's going to do is it's following my points that are perfectly flat. I'm moving it out a little bit and let go. And as you can see, it already made it natural looking. Okay. So you just have to go around these areas. Again, you're going to work from the perfectly flat area and you're going to just move yourself out. Now, of course, we don't want to mess with these tee boxes, right? So we've got to make sure we're not over here doing this because that will screw up your course. So we make this smaller now since we're dealing with a smaller area and it's not as severe over there. I could actually just leave that there and be done with it. Okay. But always remember that when you're doing this, you start from the flat area and work your way out. Okay. And now it looks perfectly fine. And then if you chose to, you could come down here And again, make it really big and flatten it even further down here. All right. So I haven't done this side. Okay, that's the building. That's another issue. All right. So that's it. I mean, to get a perfect parking lot, you got it right there. Now I forgot to do this side. Where is it? Here it is. Okay, same thing. Page 4 fuzzy brush. I live by that thing. Okay. And again, this green is nothing. It's just a chip and putt, for practice. But I don't really want to mess with it. So I make this a little smaller. Start from your flat, perfectly flat area and work your way out a little bit to the gray. That's it. Okay, so now you have a natural looking area. Same with this side. And yes, it's going to affect the street behind there. Oh, we're going to get rid of that as well. But secret to this is go from the flat side over here and work your way out. You're just going to push that terrain out so it evens up a little bit. All right. So now it looks natural. Okay. So that takes care of a parking lot. All right. So again, this is going to be a parking lot. So I guess I can do this real quick. Sculpt land, flatten, page 5. Grab my favorite brush for destruction. And for God's sakes, make it small. Okay. All right. So I know that's going to have to be, and again, if I look at my open street, what did I do? I made it in the middle, right? So could stand to be a little bigger than that. So let's just make this a little bigger, but we don't want it over here. Okay. So we'll make it there. And you can see this is actually pretty flat. Impressive. All right. So it did create a little bit over there and over there, but that's it. It's nothing like that big one we just created. So now I can go in there and create not my surface, my building, my miscellaneous, my car park. And it's guaranteed that my car park, I don't know where they came up with that name. Um, I mean, I could just do one because it's not a big parking lot. All right. Actually, I could. Now, see, I'll show you. So if I try to do a spin, because in this instance, it would look actually better. And since it's only two pieces, it doesn't matter. So we could do the spin thing, no problem. Okay. But when you start trying to do 8 or 10, then it gets really ugly. All right. Let's see. Whoops. But for two pieces, we can do it. We can deal with it. All right. And you can see right there, all right, it didn't work. All right. But you could say, who cares? Because you're not going to see this from the golf course, I don't think. So, but we could just try real quick to use this again real quick here. Make it really small. Stay on the blacktop piece. Make it really tiny and just click it. And that should clean it up. All right, no more grass. So we got our perfect parking area. We can throw some cars on there, make it pop. So um, that takes care of that. And again, with the splines, same thing. I get rid of these. All right. The entire path. Goodbye. Okay. And then I'll just go in, create new ones. And I keep that blue line right on the edge, nothing critical. Okay. And then like half. And you don't need a ton of splines. So you can just put that in there. Lined up. And I could just fill it from there. Okay. Now we got to drive around and we can park and we look just fine. So those are your parking lots. All right. And then, of course, I'll have to finish cleaning these things up. Okay. But there's our perfect parking lots. Now, as far as a clubhouse, that's a total different ball game. And you've got to be really careful with clubhouses because if you have driving areas around a clubhouse, which normally you do, okay, you got to be careful because we create an object, building, clubhouse, depending on the clubhouse itself. Um, like I still haven't decided which one I'm going to use for this place. I always love this one because I can make it almost like a semicircle. Add two of these together if it is a big clubhouse. And this course does have a big clubhouse. So I'm going to probably mix these, one here. But you'll see here, see the gap? Now, clubhouse and experienced designers know all this. So, but if you're new and you're lidaring, all right, the problem is watch what it does to the land. So once I click here, watch that land. Boom. It makes it level, whether you want it level or not. Okay. I don't like that because the problem is, it creates this lip all the way around to make it perfectly square. All right. So, like me, I'm probably going to add another one. So, I'm going to spin this around. All right. And end up using this here. And again, if you screw up, you redo it. Okay. but that type of thing. So I'm going to make it a huge clubhouse because at this golf course, it is a huge clubhouse. Um, and you can go to Google Earth, which that's what this is, and just get an idea. I mean, you only have 6 different templates you can use for a clubhouse, so you just get creative. I mean, some guys create houses and put them down and sink them down and bring it. No, no, I'm not about that. All right. So, and this building, I have no freaking clue what that is, but it's there, and I'm gonna have to put something there, which I'm gonna show you about houses and elevation problems you're gonna run into there. So here we go. So we have our clubhouse, okay, and the issue is this tends to not let you anywhere. Well, let me get rid of this gray. If I can find the splines. There we go. So there's gray areas from open street. We don't need it. I just, bring in the buildings just to know, okay, there's the clubhouse. It's going to be in that general area. Once you have it in place, boom, you get rid of it. All right. Now, this is interesting. So this one, it did not flatten. That's very interesting, actually. It didn't flatten this. So look, the doors are there. All right. Everything's underground. I wonder why. I never saw that before. So once I put the second one in, all right, and they're pretty level as far as these windows and everything else. Once I put that in there, that is really interesting. So it's almost like, let me see something. So if we take this and we just put that there, that one's lifting in the air. So that's very interesting. So if you add a second one, it does not take the flatness. All right, so let's try this. Let me see if we do this. 6, let's delete this. And now that I know where I want this sucker, let's go back and use my favorite brush in this area. Whoops. That's not what I meant to do. So let's undo that. Let's reset this and let's start over. Because we don't want to change the height. It's already going to do that. All right. All right. So, and I know I'm going to use probably 2 clubhouses. And I think that'll be enough area. So let's give it a shot. Worst comes to worst, we start over, right? All right. So we now know that that area there is flat. So let's just try create a building. And I don't think that's going to be big enough for two. But so you're damned either way. The good way is I would do it this way. Absolutely. So we're only going to use one. And here's the 18th hole. So I'm just going to make that straight on. So if you use that brush, you know it's going to be a perfect connection. All right. And let's see if we can actually sculpt around that. It did smooth it a little bit, but you could see I screwed that up. So I'm going to undo it because the blue is just too much. But understand that what the clubhouse creates is a pain in the butt. All right. So you want to try to smooth it as much as possible. All right. That looks actually pretty decent. Okay. So now we have our flat clubhouse. It's perfectly spaced. Now we can go ahead and get rid of these splines. And then I'll probably end up, because if I look at Google Earth, they've got like a flower bed, type thing. Uh, so I'll probably end up putting a wall there. And put a patio and all that. So we're not we're not going to go over the actual design stuff. I'll actually do that on a different feed. So we saw what happens here, right? So this will flatten the area it feels it needs to get a perfect, um, to clean up this contour. But as a result, it lifts it up abruptly, and you've got to either plan around there or try to clean it up as much as possible. Okay. So that's the clubhouse. Now you got a separate building. We know there's a building there. We already saw it. So what the hell are we going to use? Well, good question. We're going to add um, a building. I don't know what type of building. You could try a mini clubhouse. I'm curious to see if it flattens this. Yes. So if you use a mini clubhouse or something like that, I just tried it just to see. See how it flattened all this area around the friggin' thing? It's huge. It goes from here all the way around here. Okay. And then created that huge thing there. So obviously we're not going to use that. All right. So the only thing we're left with is townhouses type thing, maybe use something like this. All right. But as you can see with the LiDAR data, it's not perfectly flat, right? And if you just click this, all right, unlike a clubhouse, all right, you end up with a gap. And I've seen beginners do that. They'll click a house and not really pay attention to it. It's like, yeah, it's flat. Well, no, it's not. All right. You've got a huge gap there. So, unfortunately, with houses on the golf course, you do have to contour that stuff. But it's the same everything. And, it's like, if you saw my videos with the bridges, trying to get that lined up. All right. We'll try it like 2 feet at a time. I don't want to bring it up abruptly because then it really looks like crap. So I'll just take this, swipe it along, and raise up the area that needs to be raised up. Okay. Just a single click. Now, a good thing with houses is it doesn't need to be exact. But like me with my bridges, I'm picky. So um, that looks pretty good, except for that corner there. Yeah, it's just got to bring it up a little bit. And again, big blue brush. So it looks natural. It's not, raised up and looks like crap. Now, this kind of thing, you can see how it slopes up here, and, you know, you could leave it that way as long as the doorway looks pretty even, which it doesn't. Okay. So I try to get this stuff evened out. So again, big blue brush and bring it down. But we got to be careful, what's behind that blue brush too. So in this case, there's nothing really. I'm going to drop this down about 3 feet, almost 4 feet. All right. Reset it. And then we can start getting it evened. All right. And I can see that there's a gap there, right? So I brought it down too much. So let's see. We're bringing it up, I don't know, maybe a foot. Bring it back down here. Still a gap. So I'll bring it down maybe about 6 inches. I'm going to raise it up, but bring it down to 6 inches. All right. And that looks pretty good. Then once I'm happy with that, I can reset the brush and just make sure that it's lined up. That we don't have any huge roller coaster rides going around. And then once I see the contour is pretty decent around the house, I didn't even check this side. This is, see, there's a gap all the way down here. See it? So we've got to take this. And again, you guys might not be picky. I'm going to bring it up maybe 4 inches. Left click and drag. 4 inches did the trick, except for this corner. Then I'm just going to go along. And it looks like this, oh yeah, huge gap here still. I didn't even look in the back. And you can do it like 4 inches at a time, like I'm doing. Or you can do it in one foul swoop. It's up to you. I like to work in small increments just to make sure that it's just right. And again, this is going to be grass, so it doesn't have to be exact, but you don't want it sticking up off the ground, right? Once we know the building's good, now we can get rid of these splines. And now we know a building goes there, okay? And then we do the same thing for any abrupt areas. This isn't too bad. But I would start up here and push that terrain down. You can see I'm like right on the edge of that. Okay. And it's all up to you on how much you want to spend on this, right? I mean, that looks fairly natural, And if you get an area that's too flat, and you're like, oh shit, that we need something that doesn't look natural, you can go in here and choose like one of these brushes, okay, and raise it up. I don't know, maybe a foot. All right, and what it'll do, it'll take that flat area, and again, you can play around with these brushes, and all it does is just make it a little uneven, make it look, you know. And this is the brush I tell people to use, and they're doing fantasy courses to get some undulation in the fairways instead of having a flat fairway. And that's it. So, you get a little contouring, but nothing huge. Then I go back with this, make it big, and just swipe across it. So it keeps the contouring, but smooths it a little bit, so it looks better. But that's all I wanted to do today. Uh, parking lots, perfect, right? Strip out the splines, redo them so it's nice and even wherever you decide to put them. Clubhouses, we got to make sure that we flatten this, throw the clubhouse down, and then again, work on smoothing out this edge that it creates. Okay. And houses, total opposite. It doesn't take up and raise up any contouring. So you have to make sure wherever you place a house that you contour it with the fuzzy brush, page 4, and just get it so there's no areas where the house is off of the ground. There's nothing more annoying than seeing that. Okay. So that's it, guys. Uh, no course creation, just the stuff around it and how to do it correctly. All right. So have a great night.